Today we're going to look at igniting minds, embracing hearts, and piquing curiosity. Interesting topic, right? Now I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine you're a 15-year-old woman. As you're starting your self-discovery, you're diagnosed with lupus. Now, this is a chronic autoimmune disease. It can be treated, but it cannot be cured. Now your carefree teenage life just changed radically. Now what? What limitations are you going to face? What career choices are going to be eliminated? And how are you going to live a full and healthy life? Well, my guest, April Chavez, decided that she was not going to allow lupus to control her life, her career, or her health. She studied how thoughts, feelings, patterns of events, and emotions associated with disease flare-up profoundly impact health. All right, let's meet her. April's a very captivating public speaker, as you're going to find out. She's a former police officer. Imagine that, having lupus. Mother of three miracle daughters, the miracle daughters. She's a symbol of resilience and an advocate for comprehensive wellness. And her program encompasses spiritual, the intellectual, and the physical aspects. Along with her husband, she has now founded Driven Livin LLC. April, welcome to Life Off Community Events.
Frank, thank you so much for having me. That was a beautiful introduction.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being here. April and I have spoken a couple of times, and as I kept hearing her story, I said, this is someone that the world needs to know and meet. So your journey with lupus led you on this quest. We're going to find this holistic wellness and focusing on the spiritual, intellectual, and the physical parts, right? Now, how has this experience led you from a police officer, which when you told me that, I said, really? You were a police officer? And how it influenced this driven living approach that you have now?
Well, that's a long story. Let's start going back a little bit too, because you mentioned in the intro that, yes, I was diagnosed with systemic lupus at the age of 15. And I had had symptoms since birth. So there were many, many years of going to Children's Hospital, not really living that average childhood life, not being able to perform in sports when I wanted to because of physical ailments. And it wasn't discovered until 15 when they did more extensive blood work. And so at that point, it was kind of nice to be like, all right, at least we know what. And there's a sense of relief in that. But I think what makes me a little bit more unique is because I was a child having an autoimmune disease, I pictured the world a little differently. And I say that because when I was a teenager, my mom put me in a support group for lupus. And I felt so uncomfortable, Frank, because I was the only kid in there. And so I felt like not like I fit in there. Right. Like it wasn't really my place, even though we shared something that was the same. But I didn't want to utilize that diagnosis as an excuse or as, you know, this is an end all. And because I was a kid, I wanted my life, I wanted to live it fulfilled. I wanted to be like the other kids. And so I never wanted my disease to define me. And I think that really led me into career fields such as law enforcement, male dominant fields, where I always wanted to prove to myself and the world that it didn't define me, that I was stronger than that. And so it very much propelled me, along with some other things. You know, I grew up during the Columbine era in Colorado, so school shootings. I had a girlfriend who was robbed in Denver and was shot. And so there was a lot of things that added up to that decision. I was very interested in forensic science in high school. And, you know, when I was 18, I was told I couldn't have children. And I became pregnant because at 18, I was sexually active. And I was like, well, why am I taking this birth control?
Right.
So
exactly.
I stopped taking birth control, which wasn't really doing me any favors either. Back then, there was a lot more side effects, and I became pregnant. So that really changed the course of my life. And so when you say 3 miracle children, that's kind of where it stems from, because I've really branched outside of what was said was supposed to be my life, or statistically so. And so I have 3 very healthy, beautiful daughters.
Wonderful.
And I became a mother really young. And that really set the stage for me learning more about taking care of myself, because I didn't want to be the mom on the couch where my girls were taking care of me. I did not want to go there. So I really started researching diet, exercise, what you put in, on, and around your body, those sort of things. Like, how do I live the best lifestyle where I'm healthy enough to take care of my children? And so that really started it. So overall wellness has always been at the forefront because of that.
Right.
So that's a really good foundation of where and why I show up in the world today, is because, again, it's always been at the forefront.
It's amazing. You can never underestimate the power of the human spirit. There's so many people that I've run into, including my brother, who were told, you might live 5 more years. And 40 years later, he's still thriving. And now you're still thriving.
Yeah.
And it's simply, you're not going to win. Okay, that's just the mindset.
It
I
is
love
a
your
mindset.
philosophy. I love you. Go ahead.
My mom was told also when I was real young that I wouldn't make it to see 30. But she chose not to tell me that. So I wanted to go back to that mindset thing, because I think that's an important piece. She did not tell me that until a few years after I turned 30. And I was fairly healthy at that point. So it's been an ebb and flow with the disease too. And so we'll get more into that, because I started realizing that there's definitely some times that where I'm really sick and where I'm not.
It's because it can't be cured. It's something that now you have to alter your lifestyle from what it might have been to what it needs to be at this point going forward. And that's a tremendous example for your children, I'm sure. And then it's also something that's launched into this, the consulting and coaching that you're doing. So the philosophy, again, is spiritual, intellectual, and physical. Okay,
Yeah.
now how do you maintain that balance as you go into this coaching world?
Well, lifestyle is a constant thing. It's just like when you are a life learner, it's life learner, right? And so we are always needing to maintain that and consistently pursue being a little bit better. And SIP Life Slowly is really part of that acronym. It's just given a little bit of a term there.
Mhm.
And I tell people that it starts with S. It is SIP, instead of the other way around, because no one wants to piss on themselves, Frank. And so it's very intentional. We wanted to go that direction, and I question that too, because wellness is under this massive umbrella, right? And if
Right.
anybody knows in the wellness arena, it is not easy to really hone those in. And we have like either the 5 buckets or the 7 buckets, the wheelhouse of what we consider overall wellness, and being able to condense that or put acronyms behind it, what makes it easiest. And so I wanted to make it a little more simple. And I feel very deeply that it always starts with spiritual. Because there was a point where I questioned, I'm like, do I have it in order? Is it the right way? Shouldn't physical aspects and presenting that in life first take priority? But it's not. That, according to what I have found and what science is coming up with more and more and more, but that spiritual piece of us is key. I mean, we are energetic beings. We are spiritual beings. And so that is really where it comes to. And I mentioned a little bit earlier that we'd get into where I was starting to see similarities that were happening in my life, the times when I became really sick. It was always after major events, major stressors. And you've heard oftentimes stress is the #1 killer, right?
Yes.
And stress is tied to emotion. And you can go deeper and deeper into that, into the science behind that. But it all comes back to those reoccurring thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. And so when I started seeing this pattern in life, I noticed that it is the thoughts and the beliefs that are really, making me unwell and causing the dis-ease.
I I understand exactly what you're saying. I was a medic in the military many, many years ago, and we would see that quite a bit, was
Mm,
stress induced. Anytime there's a big inspection coming up, where you get people coming in with depression, or people coming in, or they got physically ill.
yeah,
When you're in a war zone, there's a lot of that goes on. And as in talking about the spiritual is really important, because some people say, "Well, that's just a woo-woo stuff," but it's not. It's
no.
not. It's out there, and I think that's where the mindset comes from. It's I am not going to allow this to happen. I believe I deserve better, and I'm going to pursue that. Is that about right?
Yes, I mean, we are we are so much more than anyone could imagine. I mean, it's difficult to conceptualize that because we're put into this physical form.
Mhm.
And the way that we have been conditioned, so, and because the body is a robot controlled by the mind, so we have those reoccurring thoughts. It's We don't see it, but yes, because we're this immaculate being, um, yeah, absolutely. We are worthy. We're beautiful. We are love. And source is love. And so if we are a part of that, then that's what we are. And so coming to that understanding is kind of the first step, right? It's acknowledging that, it's having an understanding of that, but then how do you tap into that and how do you reach that? So that's where the work comes in, right? To really start to quiet yourself and go within, and that is not easy to do. We live in a very fast-paced world. I first learned a lot of stuff with law enforcement, and you talked about the front lines and being on the battlefield, etc. You see so much, and having to maintain yourself in all that is not easy. And so that's where a lot of trauma comes in. And if you can't, get a handle on that, it can be very, very damaging, as many know. And so something that there was a couple things that I learned that were, well, a lot of things that I learned, but two that come to mind with law enforcement was that I started seeing and noticing that people would continue on that cycle of violence, let's say,
Yes.
right? We had a lot of domestic violence cases, many, many. And so you would offer assistance and resources, and they would just continue to go back to the same old situation. But that is just an idea of how we are as human beings. We go back to what's familiar, even if it's not good for us. I also learned breath work. That was the first time that I started learning about calming down our system, because when you're responding and you're responding to something that's extraordinarily intense, uh, a hostile situation, or you're holding someone at gunpoint, you have to be able to calm yourself down enough in order to handle any weapons or any situation to protect yourself and others. And so, because when we're in a high stress, our motor skills are not functioning the way that they should.
Mhm.
So breath work really that began, and when I started realizing that that is something that we can do to calm ourselves down, that's just a piece of it. It's a tool that we can utilize. Meditation came way later. And
That's right.
when you talked about woo-woo, Frank, I mean, yeah, that's a thing that people have in their head, and especially me in law enforcement at the time. I knew that there's that spiritual piece to us, but I didn't really dive into it because I wanted to be grounded I wanted to stay in this realistic field because I felt that that was safe and that was what was going to, I didn't want to go into some weird stuff.
Right.
What you consider weird, right?
Right.
And so I didn't learn until much later on that these things are very, very beneficial. And so meditation is really one of the key things that I have learned to start calming down and going within and stopping that monkey mind, a lot of people will state.
That's so true. I was a mentor with the Veterans Treatment Court, which is a veteran who's committed a crime, but it's not a heinous crime. Right? Usually it's something stupid, drunk driving or something like that. But there was so much PTSD, so much, particularly the last 20 some years since all the Desert Storm and all that nonsense. Because if you were in the military, odds are you were in the war zone. And I started to, as I was going through this, you start learning these triggers that, and it doesn't have to be a gunshot or it could be a smell, it could be a sound, it could be
Yep.
anything. And then being able to identify the trigger and then cope with it. How did you do that?
Oh, gosh. Well, Frank, I still am doing it. Again, this is, I think too, I really want to be clear that it is a constant practice. And I think that that's something that sets people back or holds people back because they think it's so unobtainable, or they feel like you do it a few times and then you're supposed to be okay.
Right.
Well, none of us are okay. We have to just keep doing our best and keep learning and growing. And that's really what I like to project into the world, is that it is this continuous journey of evolving into something greater. And so some of the things that I think a lot of it is knowledge and learning and understanding. Dr. Joe Dispenza is a huge influence in my life. I also really, really love the work that the Heart Math Institute is doing.
Mm-hmm.
They are also involved in the Global Consciousness Project 2.0, which is something that people can look into and research. But this is where all the science comes into the play. And that's where me saying, oh, woo woo, and then coming to the idea of the actual knowing because it's being proven scientifically. It's a really, really cool thing. But the big proof, Frank, is when we feel it. It's not just seeing that this is scientific evidence. I mean, yes, that's part of it. And we start to be like, okay, I'm open to this. I want to know more. But it's when you start doing the work and you feel it and you can feel the energy. I mean, one of the most simplistic ways of showing that is when you ask people to rub their hands for a little while and then you hold them this way apart and you can feel the energy. But so that's a really, really easy way of explaining just how much frequencies we have coming off of ourselves. And those frequencies have information, and all of that is emotion. And so much of that is where I have an idea and an understanding, and that's what helps me the most, because I go back when I have those reoccurring thoughts and I start to feel bad, or I start to feel panicky or anxiety, then I know what's happening to my body. And I think that is really a key thing. And that was what helped me in law enforcement too, when I'm, doing a felony stop on my own. And I have an understanding of what is happening to my body. And so then I know how to hone it back in. I know what steps I need to take in order to calm it down. And so I think that the understanding and the awareness is really important, to know what's happening to you, to know that it's normal, to know that it's okay. Anxiety is a big thing. People get anxiety attacks and things are happening to their body and they're freaking out and they think they're having a heart attack or what have you. But when we understand that it's just our body responding to really stressful thoughts or what have you, and we can actually calm ourselves down to just sit with ourselves and breathe deeply, It's pretty amazing the things that can happen. Our bodies are incredibly powerful.
They are. I interviewed Donna Eden, who's in a lot of the energy studies, and she had said it's three. She said it was three prongs. It's your brain, your mind, the spirit. It's your heart,
Yes.
and then it's your physical being.
Yeah.
And the three of them have to align.
Yeah.
And when you get those in alignment, so you could be physically fit, but your head could be, oh, I can't do this. I'm not good enough, or whatever that happens to be. And then it's harnessing that, correct?
Well, that's why spirituality comes first.
Right. Exactly.
Why that's and absolutely. And I really invite people to look into the Heart Math Institute, because they are the ones that have done such extensive research on the coherence of the brain and heart. And it's when you go into that coherent state that you're creating a totally new you.
Mhm.
Really. I mean, and another thing is that people might think that this is not something that's obtainable, or it's too difficult, or it's not true.
Mhm.
But if you think of it as how powerful our thoughts are, I liken it to, and I hope that I could say this, but this is one of the easiest ways for me to explain it, because when we have a sexual thought, just think of how fast that switches a body, right? Just one little thought. And that changes what we do, how we think, how we feel. And that's what I liken it to. That's how powerful our thoughts are. And because change is the only constant, we can change ourselves just that rapidly by doing a little bit of work, or concentrating on our heart center and going into a loving and compassionate feeling. It just changes the trajectory of everything.
I love that. We had some people who were dealing with bias, and they would talk about taking a deep breath, reflect, redirect, and respond. Don't react. A knee-jerk reaction usually doesn't turn out too well. Is that what you found?
Yeah. Knee-jerk reaction does not turn out well. No. I am really, really grateful for my experience in leadership positions, because I certainly had a temperament and an attitude when I was younger. And when you feel like life is happening to you, and it feels so wrong and unfair, our easy human reaction is to lash out, to be
Right.
angry, to blame, to slam cupboards or whatever, right? To be so upset. And that's easy to do. That is a very quick reaction. And it's more difficult to take control of yourself. And when I was put into professional positions, like, you can't have any of that. Like, that's not acceptable. So, I think that really was a great starting point for me. And I went into leadership positions so rapidly. I mean, I started in the academy as a squad leader, just like that. And having kids early on, I mean, that certainly helps, where you have to
Yes.
be a better person, a better version of yourself, in order to, protect others. And so I think that, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, that was good. That was good. Now, as you bring people, and you do a lot of coaching with people, and as they come in, what's the first thing you say to them as they come into your program?
Mm. Well, the first thing I say is, hello, Frank.
That's a good one. That's a good start.
Welcome. And I would say I always make sure it's a good fit. And so I don't take just anybody right off the bat. We have a time together to see if it's a good fit, because people have to desire the change greatly enough. And a
Right.
lot of people, especially coaches, know that it is not fair to somebody or to themselves to work with somebody who really doesn't believe enough in themselves and doesn't believe that change can happen. And so that's the first and foremost. It's a discussion about, is this going to be a good fit? This is how I work. Does that sound good to you? Is this something that is in alignment with you? Because I work with people with hypnotherapy. So my performance coaching has a lot of that calming down the system, going within, because I know that that's where some of the greatest and quickest work can be done, is by really changing yourself neurologically and making things really sticky. And so that's why I have a conversation with someone first to make sure that that is something that they're open to.
Exactly. There has to be a why. Why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you hear, well, because my boss said I have to clean up my act. Okay, well, not a good reason. Exactly. It's
Yeah.
what's your reason? And nothing's going to change until you choose to change.
100%. And it has to be for you. You know, you have to desire the change because it's for you. It's that self-love, self-compassion, self-care. It's about desiring to improve yourself.
Mhm. And you got to start there. One thing, one of the fitness and health people I said, interviewed said, Frank, self-care is the best healthcare, period.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you have to do something. You can't just rely on, just take this pill and you'll be better. It doesn't work.
Well, it's temporary.
Exactly.
Yeah. Learning long-term habits is really probably the best route.
Right. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a great deal of energy. I used to have your business going. You have business, and so you're an entrepreneur, and this is filled with all kinds of challenges, as we all know, and rewards. And it's not for the faint of heart, obviously, because some days you get up and it's like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you started this business organically, right? You had limited funds, but you had this great intuition and faith, and you were willing to work hard. What would you share with other people who want to get into this world? Any experiences that you had that would benefit them?
Oh, so many. Entrepreneurship, you're correct. It's not for the faint at heart. And I have a fantasy, Frank, that more and more people are going to step into it.
Yep.
And it is scary, and it is also so exciting. And I think that really when you switch the mindset of this is exciting and this is an adventure, and also knowing that you are going to fall down over and over and over and over again. And as long as you keep getting back up, I think Rocky, one of the Rocky movies said that. So life is gonna kick you down, and it'll keep you down there if you let it. And so as long as you keep getting back up, you know, so it's a lot of that, because when you step into this position, it is all you. This is your baby. You no longer have the safety net of corporate or whatever career field that you're leaving. You know, so you no longer have people that are taking care of the finances. You are no longer have people that are backing you with health and medical and, you know, all of the things, right? Training, everything is now on you. And especially for us, we did go into it completely organically. We didn't go into it with a team. Our team consists of 2.5, and the half is a cat. And because she doesn't have thumbs, she's not very helpful. So, but she's certainly there for us when we need a loving purr and all of those awesome frequencies that come from that purr. There's a lot of health benefits there, but we can talk about that another time.
Right.
So it is, you have to have that passion, the drive, and consistency is super, super key. Of course, many people hear that. I have a lot of people ask, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And it's a lot of determination. I mean, the Driven Livin and the Wellness Driven Life Show that driven is really part of the key player.
Right.
It's having a drive, a desire, a passion, a goal. It's knowing that your business is a reflection of you. Your branding is you. And when you hone in on your values, being able to put those values out and into every single thing that you do, every post that you do, every marketing that you do, every action that you do should be in alignment with who you are, because that's what it is. It's your baby. And so having an understanding of, yes, it's going to be challenging. Yes, you're putting yourself in the most vulnerable position that you ever have. And because it is you, and you're putting yourself out there. It's like stepping out on a stage, and public speaking is one of the greatest fears that we have as human beings, right? We could go into the history and the biological aspects of why that is, but this is what it is. It's like stepping out on a stage and presenting yourself to the entire world. But now, Frank, that's why I have this fantasy that more people are going to be doing it, because I believe that when we're all going into our passions, when we are all being in the creative state, is how we start to evolve. And my part of our mission and the idea of what we want to bring to the world is helping evolve humanity. And I believe that that's a very great piece of it.
Mm-hmm. That is a big deal. When what have seen in the COVID world is so many people are doing exactly what you said. I'm unhappy. I didn't appreciate the life that I had, an hour commute each way, 10 hours at work,
Yeah.
and I was not happy. So I'm going to try and make myself happy. Right now, when you leave the corporate sector, like in my case, I had like hundreds of people, and I would say, "Here, handle this." And then you're on your own, and you try to handle this, and there's nobody there. So now it's you. As you
Yep.
said, you have to do it. And one of the things I was told years ago was the first thing you're going to face whenever you make a decision or you try to get a life altering thing, first thing you're going to run into is fear and doubt.
Oh, yes.
Now, how are you going to handle it?
Yeah. Uh, that is something that took a very, very long time, and I continue to work on. But I knew when I started this, if I continue to take things so personally, I'm a very emotional person, very.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that vulnerably, authentically, and it's easy for me to revert back to feeling like I'm taken advantage of, or I've taken things personally. But um, Four Agreements is a book that has to be read often, and
Yes.
so to refresh. But I had to do a lot of work with myself before I went into this, and I learned a lot of heavy lessons with family, friends, and family. The people that are closest to you that don't end up supporting you. And you know, I've kind of wore a little bit of an entrepreneur hat, bits and pieces weaved throughout life.
Mhm.
And so I think I've always kind of had the spirit of it. And there was something that I was really really interested in doing when I was a number of years ago. And my brother said something to me that was so hurtful that I stopped doing business for 2 years.
Yikes.
2 years, because I allowed what he said to me to, and I took it to heart. I was like, you know, you're right. This is crazy. I shouldn't be doing this. And that is so far from the truth. And that's easy for us to go into that place, that self-doubt, because we are harder on ourselves than anyone could ever possibly be. And
Exactly.
so because you're the worst, you're your own worst enemy, you know, having the understanding of that in order to try to be like, I can't listen to this right now, I need to keep going. And so many people, I mean, I've had the pleasure of interviewing a couple hundred people now, and people who are just you know, they're in the most beautiful places in the world. They're keynote speakers speaking around the globe, and they share stories about how they had those moments where they didn't think that they were going to continue on because they didn't feel like they were worthy or
Right.
good. You know, they almost stopped writing their book because, you know, they felt there was too many out there, or they, you know, what good is their word, you know? And we come to that because the world is full of people and things, but the truth is the world doesn't have you. And because we're all so unique, you bring the light. And that's why your business is a reflection of you. And that's why people are going to do business with you, because they like you. Not everybody's going to. You're going to
Yeah.
hear a lot of bad feedback. And I think when you know that too, you expect it. You know, I've had comments on my show that are like really negative, and I know that that's going to happen. But you know what I say about that is I'm really glad that I'm getting the comments, because guess what? They're watching the show.
Somebody watched it. There's an
Yeah.
opinion. There's a discussion going on.
Yep.
And then it moves on from there. Well, April, this has been amazing. I'm so impressed with what you've done and what you're accomplishing. We're just about out of time. What last words do you want to leave with the audience around the world today?
You are so much more powerful than you ever could imagine. And just shine your light into the world. You're worthy, you're beautiful, and we want to see you. We want to see you up on that stage and sharing your story and your journey to inspire others to take action to also improve themselves.
That is so right on point. Everyone is going through something. And when you open up, this is my experience, this is what I dealt with, it's going to impact somebody. You don't know when, or you don't know who, but there's somebody else out there experiencing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, how can people reach you, April? Because a number of people are going to want to talk to you.
Yes. Well, it's said on my name throughout this. April Chavez, Driven Livin. Go to www.drivenlivin.com. The talk show is the Wellness Driven Life Show. That's our YouTube. That's our handle for the show, is the Wellness Driven Life Show. I invite you to see that. Our website has it all. And when you come to our website, you get a free hug.
A free hug. And everybody needs one of them.
A free hug. It's
And
our ebook. And so it's really, it's our first book that we created, my husband and I, and the cat. And it's almost kind of like a children's book, sort of, in the beginning. And then there's a lot of more heavier detail towards the back of it, where there's the science behind it. And it's just another tool to put in your toolbox to utilize when you're under pressure, and you can give yourself a hug. But the book is really our gift to the world, and also for signing up for our newsletter, which has a lot of incredible content, a lot of backstories about the guests that we have on the show. So that's how you can reach us.
And make sure you make the time to reach out to April. She's, as you've heard, she's an incredible individual. She has done so much for so many. And when you do reach out to her, she responds very, very quickly. So don't hesitate. You get to know this woman. Well, as I said, we're just about out of time. April, I want to thank you again, showing us that regardless of circumstances, we can have a life that gives us joy and inspires others at the same time. Now, you can see this show on my podcast, which is called Life Altering Events, on my YouTube channel, Frank Zakari. It'll be on Parade Deck, and it'll be on my podcast, which I think I already said. I will send links to April, and she'll post them everywhere in her world. If you use the YouTube channel for either one of us, please subscribe. And let me leave you with this. None of us are in this alone, and the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, April showed us where many, many of those rocks are. Join us again next week for another life-altering event. Again, April, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Frank. Thank you.